Okay, so welcome to Murder of Crones. We are three Gen X women talking about living life in the patriarchy through an intersectional feminist lens. I am your host, Zabrina.
I'm Jen.
And I'm Kori.
So today we are going to talk about sex myths in long-term relationships.
Love it.
The quiet stories many of us absorb without ever questioning it. The idea that passion should stay effortless, that desire should look the same forever, that if sex changes, something must be wrong. This isn't about fixing anyone. It's about telling the unspoken truth. These myths don't just mislead us. They leave people feeling broken, ashamed, or alone in relationships that are actually very human. In this episode, we're going to unpack long-term intimacy and what it really looks like, why desire shifts over time, and how reframing these stories can be deeply freeing.
Wow.
Nice.
Looking
I
forward
almost
to
want to
it.
give a caveat of like, Mom, Dad, maybe skip this one.
Fair enough.
Right? Hey, you know what? Everyone's doing it.
No, it's fair. It's
And we
fair.
got to get rid of the stigma that, and the silence around it. There's so much shame and silence around this
Yeah.
topic that this is why I decided to cover this specifically. And interestingly enough, I find that the longer we are in relationships, the more shame and silence there is between partners
Yeah.
often, the less our partners are talking about it. And that's really what inspired me to do this episode, was in talking to my friends and hearing their stories and then saying to them, have you talked to your partner about this? And they say,
Yeah.
no, not a word. And I thought, yeah, we need to talk about this. So let's do it, ladies.
Let's do it. Buckle up.
So what do you guys think? I like it. Off kilter, on point. I like it. Guys, what does that mean? No, seriously, what does it mean?
I was going to say, though, it's interesting being podcasters and delving into topics like this because it's, when we share, when we discuss, we're sharing with hundreds of people. So, it's like, how much do we
Kori,
share?
we're only sharing with our four main followers. It's fine. It's just us and Jen Thompson. That's it.
And Jen will love this.
Our super fan.
And our super fan. Don't forget the super fan.
Oh yeah, super fan. Your mom, which maybe she's
perfect.
Great.
Hi, Mom. This is your warning. You might want to turn this off now. If you want to know lots about your daughter's sex life.
Right. It's like,
I love it.
This is not the episode for your mom.
No, maybe not. Well,
it's okay. She's a progressive woman. She's good.
Yes, she is. She's good. She's good.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're all having it. We're all doing it. We all have the same insecurities, really. When you start laying all the dirt on the table, it's really all the same.
Yeah.
Amen. Just make a potted plant out of the dirt and plant something nice. It's good.
Yeah, grow something out of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're going to do today.
Nice.
All right. So we've noticed that many viewers have not yet subscribed to our platforms. So please take a moment to show your support. It's free and it helps us keep growing. In return, we promise to keep striving to improve each week by bringing all of you quality content. Thank you so much for your help with that. Now, to start delving into sexuality, let's look at history. Always have to take a little deep dive back before we can move forward. Right?
That's my favorite.
Fair.
So before the sexual revolution, what do you think marriage and sex looked like, ladies?
I think it depends on the era. Because like if you go back to sort of the Victorian era, there's a very Puritan aesthetic. And like women were allowed to touch themselves, they had to like bathe in linen nightgowns. But there were periods of time before that. And also class would affect it. Like I don't think farming women, like, they know what's happening. And also, I think, they are more free to like embrace nature, right? So I don't know. I feel like there's probably throughout history people who were having good sex. It's just not a culture of talking about it. And I think certainly during certain periods, definitely women were discouraged from talking about it. And I think men also didn't, like, they weren't getting sex education either. So sometimes they're just as blind going into it. They don't have really any clue. Like, anyway, so I think it was probably a hot mess for a lot of people for a long time.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Can you imagine bathing in linens, like having to wear a nightie while bathing? That would suck.
And no central heating. So you like drafty and cold, you're getting out. And then I don't know, like, I guess changing into a dry linen.
Yeah, awkward.
Yeah.
Momentary nudity anyway, if you're getting out of it.
Yeah. So when we talk about the confounds of marriage, the reason for marrying somebody would have been very different, right? It would have been about societal status.
Yeah.
It would have been for procreation, for your farm to have lots of babies. So you had that labor. We've talked about that before. It would be more of an economic reasons, most likely. And, men were expected to be providers, women, home, keepers, the ones who take care of the children, feed the chickens. Like, the roles would have been very different pre 1970s, right? Yeah. And like we talked about in our first podcast ever, women wouldn't know anything about their bodies. They wouldn't really be encouraged to touch themselves. They would be considered hysterical, right? All of those pieces. So I think sexuality would look very different for those reasons. And there would really be no divorce either.
Yeah.
And no contraception. So things were very different in the way that I think people viewed marriage and sexuality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both a necessity, I guess.
Yeah.
Or a practicality to it versus enjoyment.
Exactly. Things changed dramatically in the 1970s due to the sexual revolution, right? Everything changes. So there's widespread access to contraception. Women start to learn about their reproductive autonomy. The second wave feminism challenged traditional gender roles within relationships and marriage. Women were increasingly encouraged to express desire, initiate sex, and they began to refuse sex because in Canada, it was legal up until 1983 under the criminal code to rape your wife. Marriage was treated as permanent consent. So, in the 1970s, second wave feminists started fighting for women to have the ability to say, no, right? This is my body and I can choose whether or not I want to have sexual relations with you or not. And I think that relationship shifted from duty-based to fulfillment-based. So things changed in the 1970s for sure.
I mean, not to say there wasn't a lot of, I want to say promiscuous women out there, but there were a lot of shotgun weddings, a lot of people getting pregnant and enjoying themselves, like to a certain degree, right? We have this idea of this sort of vanilla lifestyle pre-sexual revolution, but I don't know if it ever was totally like that. Like there was the mass majority that subscribed, but there's also human instinct and desire and passion. And when that all kicks in, those are the ingredients for a good time. So, so
exactly.
We tend to like just package it as such. But I wonder, like you were saying, Jen, with women who were, or couples, living the farm life or lower middle class society who just doing legit living and not as much concerned about image or whatnot. We're human.
I think men were probably having a lot more fun, before the 1970s. I mean, you think about all of the brothels and that type of stuff that was going on. So the men were still having a lot of sex, but I think for women it was much more difficult
I think
because of
it
your
should be
virtue.
said too that this is definitely a Western North
For sure.
American
Yeah.
perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Indigenous women, I mean, that's a really broad category. Obviously, they have different cultures and rules around that, but there was a lot of cultures that didn't have like the idea of owning somebody in a marriage was not largely the case for a lot of Indigenous societies.
Just different values in
Yeah,
relationship and partnership and what that looked at.
Yeah.
Maybe
yeah,
not in
and we
ownership.
know, was it Hoover that wore women's clothing and like had, I don't know, and then there was like one president, they found all his letters where he was like dirty talking to his wife a lot
Yeah.
in the letters, and we're like, okay, I can't remember which one it was, but I mean, I think there's always people who have found a way to please each other. It's just that it wasn't talked about. And if you, especially if you were raised in a heavily Christian worldview,
Mm-hmm.
there's men that totally believe in body purity before marriage for themselves as well. I mean, obviously that's a subsection. There was a lot of men that didn't believe it applied to them, but
I have to tell you
that,
guys something. Just on that note around religion. So one of my friends was telling me about soaking. And so soaking, and this was specific to like Mormon faith,
Mormon
where
church, yeah.
young individuals who, want to be intimate, they came up with this thing called soaking. So they're not actually having intercourse according to their standards, because what they do is they have and maybe fill me in, Jen, if I'm off with this, but so they have the couple who are wanting to have sex, and instead of the man like penetrating, they have someone shaking the bed, and so that there is a motion of the motion.
I think there is penetration. My understanding is there is
Yes, so there
penetration, but they're
is.
not moving. So as long as they stay still, they're not actually
Exactly. Exactly.
completing it. And so somebody else wiggles the bed for them,
Yes.
and then they
That
can
is
just,
Thank
so
you. Well
ridiculous.
said, Jen. Yes.
which,
So
Yeah.
like where there's a
imagine
will,
a
there's a
third
way.
person in the room with you.
Yeah. It's so interesting how people find ways around
Yeah.
these things. Like I've known of a few Catholic girls who, instead of having vaginal penetration, they would have anal penetration before sex, because
Yeah.
still then they would be considered a virgin. So
Yeah.
it's interesting how people all
Yeah.
through time have found ways to navigate
Yeah.
these rules that have been put in place, mostly for religious reasons. Yeah, it's interesting.
Little
Hey,
historical side note on my medical history courses, one of the things we looked at was a couple that was having trouble getting pregnant. And they went to the doctor, and the doctor's like, your wife is still a virgin. What is going on? And they're like, we have sex all the time. But neither of them knew what they were doing. And so, and there's no awareness of the body. I think this was sort of Victorian era. And so it turned out they had been having anal sex this entire time and weirdly weren't getting pregnant from it.
That's hilarious.
And,
oh my gosh.
but like ignorance is not helping in this case, right? Like,
Oh my gosh.
That's wild.
Anyway,
So
yeah.
interesting. Okay, so moving right along. So to learn more about how sexuality works in long-term relationships, I watched all kinds of podcasts. I did Google searches. I talked with colleagues, friends, and family. And I read a book called Mating in Captivity. I'm going to show you guys this book because I met Esther Perel through this book. And, in everything I watched, everything I read, all the research I did, this lady knows her stuff. And everything she said rang so true to me that I'm using her book really as the basis for some of the framing in this episode, because I really like her philosophy around all of this. So how this segment is going to work, ladies, is that I'm going to state a myth, and then I'm going to ask the two of you to give me your opinion on it and life experience, if you want to share that. And then I'll bring in, like I said, some of Perel's framing around it. Myth 1. If you love each other, desire should come naturally. Now, we're taught if a relationship is healthy and loving, sexual desire should just happen. Do you think spontaneous sex is something people actually experience long term, or is it a setup to feel broken?
So you're saying just because you love someone, spontaneous sex should happen long term?
Mm-hmm.
False.
Of course.
Of course, I think we are all coming at this from the wisdom of decades of relationship practice and understanding that love, like that idea that love is a verb, right? That you have to physically choose it and work on it and make it happen.
Yeah.
And sexual desire is the same, right? Like it's nice in the first blush of a relationship, but that's not a sustainable reality and a very dangerous expectation if that's what you have.
Yeah, it's true. So Perel, she has this idea that love and desire don't actually want the same thing. So love wants safety, closeness, predictability, and desire wants mystery, novelty, and a bit of distance. So when desire fades, Perel says it's often not because love is gone. It's because the conditions for eroticism quietly disappear. So has anyone ever told you, or have you ever thought, if it's right, it shouldn't be this hard? Remember thinking that in your youth? Like, oh my gosh, if this relationship was right, being turned on by this person shouldn't be so hard. Do you remember that?
Well, I think that goes for a lot of things, but I don't know. I think the more challenge we have with things, the more we work hard for it, the better the reward as well.
When I think about, people will say, well, in the beginning it was so easy, but it wasn't when you think about it. Like you were dolling yourself up and you were planning dates and you were putting energy and thought into your relationship and how the next interaction was going to go, like tons of thought. Like that's all you could think of when you're talking about, say, a front end relationship, right? You're putting so much work and energy into that. And I think what happens as time goes on is we get complacent and we get comfortable and we stop working hard to please one another.
I think there's just so much to say for the newness of it as well. Like, yes, there is the inclination, the desire to like doll yourself up and be that much more fun or attractive. But I mean, all that chemistry is there. It's just so easy. The drive is there. All it takes is a whiff of the other person. Off to the races. So, yeah. And then you get used to someone's smell and then you get used to all the things and it becomes harder. And that's when I think that, you really need to put the effort in around dolling yourself up and setting those scenarios.
And I think
the novelty phase.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Perel's point of when we love somebody, we create the stability and security, which is sort of antithetical to sexual desire, like that newness and novelty that we want when we are in a new relationship.
Yeah.
And I think it's also just that it changes the way desire functions in a stable relationship is not the same as the way it functions when you're casually dating or just meeting somebody new or in the start of a relationship. It becomes
a
different thing.
Okay, well, let's go to myth 2. Okay. Long-term passion means keeping the spark alive. We hear this phrase all the time. I remember Mike's auntie saying that to me, don't let the spark go. You've got to keep that going, Does that idea in a long-term relationship feel motivating or exhausting?
Exhausting.
And elaborate on that. Why is it exhausting?
And I am no longer in a long-term relationship. Just add that piece there.
That's okay. That doesn't make your opinion any less valid.
No, not at all. Just saying that for context moving forward in this episode. It's exhausting because you're just, those old patterns are so ingrained. the way of being. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of energy to find from my experience, find the time where both parties are at the same place where that
Oh my God.
then magic can happen, right? Like
Yeah.
you can do your damnedest, but if the other person's not on the same page and ready to step out of their comfort zone or their norm or whatever it is and take that adventure with you, it's a lot. And one-offs, that's easier to coordinate to make that happen, some spontaneous little ratata or whatever it is, but maintaining that is hard. So that's my experience.
True. It's true.
I think that I'm sort of at dual purposes here, because on the one hand, I think it's true, like there has to be some deliberate effort to keep that physical connection and keep that desire. Like it isn't just there. You have to do something about it. So like, keeping the spark alive, I guess that's a true statement. I just don't believe that it's like, it has to be 3 times a week, or you have to like, I don't, which is hard in and of itself, because then if you don't have sort of, I guess, a goal in mind of when it becomes this thing you have to like remember to remember, right? Like you have to remember to do. And that is
Schedule
the
it
mental, yeah, exactly. And that's the worst, right? It's like, well, it's Wednesday night at 6, right? Like what a horrible thing to have as like the deadline. But
oh my gosh. Yeah, that's
the
really
mental
going to kill it. Yeah, that will kill eroticism real fast.
Although that's not true too, because I do know a couple couples who do that, and I had that response. Oh my God, that's really not the way I roll, but it helps them because then they know they're committed to that time. They know they can get in the mood and they can like do whatever they need to do to, get the sexy vibes going and create that space for themselves. So it does work for some people.
Absolutely.
That's interesting.
Yeah, people's sexual appetite is always different, right? Like
how
what
works for one doesn't work for the other, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and committing the time, like agreeing that you both commit the time to this, that this is a priority.
Yeah.
And if scheduling it in is how it works, then
it works great for like people who like role play or specific activities where that's like, they can get organized, set up for it and then dive in.
Absolutely. Okay, so we'll bring in some of Perel's framing around this. So Perel actually pushes back on the spark idea. She says desire isn't a flame you maintain. It's something that emerges under the right conditions. Perel reframes passion as something you step into, not something you preserve. She is not a huge advocate of maintaining the flame by going on date nights or buying lingerie, especially in long-term relationships. Perel doesn't believe you maintain desire the way you maintain closeness. So what's your experience, ladies, with date night? Was it successful for your erotic life or not? I'll tell you about my experience with date night. Date night is a really great way to maintain your intimate connection with one another, like your closeness. But I found like I was, we were both kind of tired and full after date night, and it didn't really lead to this incredible erotic evening like we had hoped. What are your experiences with date night, or have you even tried that in your relationship?
Skip the meal. Get right down to it.
Some people do. Actually, I read about couples that would do that. They would have sex first and then go for the meal.
That's funny. Freddie and I are not really big date night people. Sometimes we'll do a weekend at the lodge or something, which is a little bit easier because then you're not on this like, well, we have 4 hours. We better get her done. We've got babysitters. We have the kind of weekend and we can lounge, we can sleep in, we can go for a walk, and it's a little bit easier that way. But our schedules are very complicated. Date nights never really worked for us, so I don't know that we ever engaged in it.
They don't really haven't really worked for Mike and I either. We've went on a few of them, and it's been really nice to go out and like just have special time together to connect and stuff. But I know that Perel talks a lot about like creating a space for eroticism, right? Something that is, so maybe that's what your friends find, Kori, when they, set a day or an evening time or something, that they're able to create that space and step out of their role as caregivers, wife, husband, whatever it would be.
Have you guys watched that show? I can't remember the name of it, but it's this woman who's a interior designer, and she designs sex dungeons for people, for couples.
Yeah.
I love it. Some of the couples don't even know, like they have no idea what they would do in a sex dungeon, but they just know this is something that might help their often long-term relationship. And she creates these amazing spaces and opens up these doors for couples that is just incredible. So maybe a sex dungeon's an answer.
Totally. Mike and I were talking about that because it gives you this space that's completely devoted to your pleasure.
It's a sacred space. Yeah.
So interesting. Yeah.
You need to have a big enough house.
Yeah, that's the problem, right?
Totally.
Yeah. Get a container.
You can buy
dropped off on a tiny home.
Yeah.
We're just going to the backyard for a little bit, kids.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so funny. Okay, so let's take a closer look at closeness versus desire. So closeness seeks safety, predictability, and merging. And in closeness, that's what we're really looking for when we're, entering into our long-term relationship. We're wanting all of that stuff. We're wanting commitment, predictability, routine, safety, all that kind of stuff, right? Where desire needs, according to Perel, distance, autonomy, mystery, and otherness. And desire is really where your erotic, life comes from. And it's interesting to think about that the very context of a relationship, like what a relationship is, actually kills eroticism. When you think about that, right? Like that's so fascinating, but it makes sense, right? Eroticism is front end. It's like getting to know someone. It's mystery. It's all those pieces, those things you don't know about that person. And then when you're in a long-term relationship, all of those things kind of kill that flame. Very interesting.
Although when you think of going through life with a partner and as we age and we change and our needs change, well, that long-term connection with a partner ideally ebbs and flows with that, where desire and passion weaves in and changes throughout those years, and it will always look different. Like the desire and passion we had when we were 20s is not going to be the same when we're in our 70s. And so maybe it's just reframing what desire and passion looks like to us and trying to keep on par with the reality of that, or with realistically what we need. Like for me, I find I need that closeness and intimacy, that trust with my partner. And when that wasn't strong anymore, and when that wasn't there, that passion and that desire, that piece wasn't obtainable for me. So it's a little different than what you're saying, where you need the slightly removed, risky sort of piece for passion. That didn't work for me at this point in my life in that long-term relationship. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think that passion has to do with the closeness and the intimacy. And you definitely always should be feeling, or not always, but it's really important to feel connected to your partner in those ways. Absolutely. Because what's a relationship without those pieces? But they're also, for many people, they're craving that erotic piece. And eroticism doesn't necessarily live in that space. It's not to say that those other pieces aren't incredibly valuable and important in a relationship.
I think, I don't know, this might be Perel that actually said this, but that piece too about when relationships become imbalanced and there's a caretaking aspect to it, I think especially for women, but probably true for men as well, is that in our brains, when we are doing a lot of caretaking for a person or doing a lot of the jobs of responsibility, that places that person in the space in our brain we reserve for children. And it goes against our biological programming to be sexually attracted to our children, to the people that we are caretaking, right?
Yeah.
So if your relationship becomes one where you are doing a lot of the mental support or the physical caretaking, I think it's very natural for us to no longer feel sexual desire in that space, because that's not the right space in our brain for it, right?
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
I think, because I'm like you, Kori, I really, I think I do better sexually in a space where I feel safe, I feel secure, I feel like I know the person, and I feel like I can let down any guards. But I still understand there's a fine line, right, where it becomes a bit it can become a bit stale or like not super inspiring. Maybe safe and reliable and comforting. I don't know, like I'm not a creature from hookup culture. Like that wasn't, Gen Xers. We were sort of, I think all of the dating apps were not a thing so much for us, right?
But we
So
definitely had the hookup culture.
yeah, I mean, hookup culture
Yeah.
existed, but not in the way that it does for
No.
for the young people now, right? Where
Yeah.
you couldn't just, like you could hook up with somebody at the bar or at a club or something, but you couldn't just actually go hunting for somebody for a quick fix, right? And
We
I don't
called
know that
them
I
one
would
night
ever.
stands.
Thank you, Kori. Can you tell that wasn't my
One night
experience?
stand. Yeah.
This was not how I rolled.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, so under the guise that desire needs distance, autonomy, mystery, and otherness, she says to cultivate separateness, so not constant togetherness, because desire thrives when you still see your partner as a separate person with their own inner world. So not completely like becoming one person. Having erotic distance would mean things like just having your own interests, your own friendship. Going on. Mike and I go on a separate trip at least once a year. But really, like when we come back together, we have great sex because we've had that distance. It builds some mystery, like you miss each other. Like it just, I've definitely found that in my relationships or in my relationship that definitely has helped to bring that eroticism back. And it's not just say that there isn't a place for that comfortable kind of sex, but if you're craving, you want things to be a little bit spicier at times, these are some things that you can try. So Pharrell visited 20 countries and asked the same question. When are you most attracted to your partner? There was only one common gender specific answer that arose, and it was from women. And it was that women found their partners super sexy when they were playing with their children. And that was like the only one that was gender specific. All of the rest of the people said that it arose from distance, watching their partner do art across the room at a party, playing sport, separation like a vacation, like just like what I was talking about with Mike and I. And it's because it makes that person kind of mysterious and unknown again, just like it was in the beginning.
Yeah. This speaks a little bit to that idea that I think a really problematic myth is that if you love somebody, you want to do everything with them and they will be all things for you.
Yes.
Right? I think the healthiest relationships, each individual has a very rich external life outside of their relationship with their partner, either hobbies, activities, friend groups, they're into music or something. And I think, of course, you have to have commonality and share things, but having your partner be, healthily separate from you is, I think, smart.
Yeah. And I think that's definitely something I came across a few times in listening to different sex therapists was that in the culture that we live in now, we're expecting too much from our partner because we're not as hooked into community the way that we used to be.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So we're expecting them to be our entertainment, our best friend, our provider, our partner, like just all these things. And one person can't possibly fill all those roles. And then we're expecting to have hot sex with them at the end of the day. That's a tall order, a really tall order to put on any relationship. It's unrealistic.
At the risk of wading into some spicy topics, that phrase that we hear often nowadays, the male loneliness epidemic. I think this is one of the problems is that men are not encouraged to find social spaces for themselves. They are taught that their partner is going to be everything for them. And by the very nature of them wanting a partner that's going to do all things, they drive women away, right? Like, I don't want to take that on, right? So they are lonely because they are actually isolated from other men and friends and support groups and interests. And then they are finding themselves being rejected in romantic situations because women do not want to sign on to being mother, maid, servant, all of the things, friend and companion in all spaces. So that idea, I think of like, I think for men in our society, we like North American society, maybe more so than European society, because I feel like even though we're both Western cultures, I think what I see of European men is a lot more social spaces than what I see. And maybe that's just my experience. We live on a small island in a sort of remote area where there's not a whole lot for men to do here beyond sort of drink beer with the boys, and if that's not your vibe.
Although there's, I mean, gym culture is huge for men.
Yeah.
Sports, like that's going to games and whatnot. And then on the island, we've got like huge outdoor activities. So I don't know. I always wonder, like, how, like, we create the discourse, right? And we create our realities, and the more we focus on these things, the more they come true too. So I was just thinking too of a good friends of mine who are a couple. They do everything together, and and who knows from the outside, who knows, right? But they seem super duper happy. And I can think of another older couple that used to volunteer where I worked, and they've spent their life. They had a career together, and didn't have kids, and have done it all together. There's always the exceptions, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think we create our own realities too. So when we get in our heads stuck about something, whether it's my partner doesn't have enough friends, he needs me for everything, or my sex life sucks because this isn't happening. That's the way it's going to be, So I think we have to be careful of that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, what you're talking about, Kori, is bred from not discussing sexuality, not knowing what is normal. That's why I wanted to do this episode, because people don't know what normal relationships actually look like. We're looking at everybody else's relationships from the outside, but we don't know what's really going on, because oftentimes, from what I've read and have been looking into, people who are touching, petting, pecking, holding hands all the time, those are all a lot of the things that can also indicate there isn't a lot of sex going on, because they're deeply intimate, and people who are deeply intimate oftentimes don't have that a real erotic piece, because they become so enmeshed in each other, so like, one with one another, that this is the thing that can often kill eroticism, is not having that otherness and having a bit of a separate life from one another, And that doesn't mean that these couples aren't satisfied. You don't have to be having sex all the time, or erotic sex, to have an incredible relationship with someone. And we'll get into that with some of the other myths as we kind of move along. But the whole piece is that what we see isn't necessarily what's actually happening behind closed doors. Like, it doesn't mean that these people are having incredible sex, or they've got, you don't know what's going on with other people, and people don't share this stuff very often. They don't talk openly about their sex life, and people don't know. Because of that, people don't have a really good understanding of what a long-term relationship actually looks like for most people, and that's really sad, I think.
Yeah, that there's not the openness to share. I often look at people and think, I wonder what it's like behind the bedroom door for you.
Right?
But you're right. People don't, and I guess it's partly people don't want to feel like they aren't meeting what what the line of what should be, the expectation of what should be. So we're scared to talk about it.
For sure. So let's hit myth 3, because it's kind of touching on this. If sex declines, does it mean that something is wrong with your relationship? So when sex slows down or disappears, the immediate assumption is we're broken. There's something wrong with us. What do you guys think about that? Do you agree?
No, I don't agree. I mean, as we're saying, it's the ebbs and flows of life. It's never going to be the same throughout the relationship. So it's something we have to work at and be conscious of, and decide our measures around too.
It's funny when you say this because I am just realizing as you verbalized it that I think this is one of my husband's beliefs, that he'll say that quite often. Like, that's the first thing that goes when a relationship's falling apart. And the few times that we have had real dry spells, this is when he has been basically certain that we're over. And I'm like, dude, like, we're just both real busy and real tired. Like, it's fine. It's okay.
Yeah.
And this does not mean that I don't love you or you don't love me anymore. And I just realized that this is a myth he's living under and has been living under this whole time. Not, it's not come up a ton for us, but also I'm like, oh my God. Okay. This is a conversation I have to have with my husband.
Yeah. Right? Like, people panic in a dry spell, right? They panic.
Yeah, he panics. And then he withdraws because he figures it's over. And then I have to do a whole bunch of work to like band-aid him back together.
Wow.
And then we can move forward and it's okay. But it's always like, okay, we're fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah. I think that's a myth I've held too in my relationship as well. Yeah. It's so interesting, the things that we have been fed and we believe and internalize, and then, without talking to other people and what's going on for them, you just live inside of these really unhealthy myths.
Well, also the other thing is like most of our life experiences are made up of information that has proved true. Like, it's a belief that we've held on to. And if you think about it, until you're in your long-term relationship, marriage, any relationships that you had, that's probably true in the like outside, that like your relationship's hot and heavy, everything's great, it's super sexy and fun, and then it starts to calm down, and maybe there's other fractures in the relationship that are not worth fighting for, and the sexual attraction kind of dies, sex disappears, the relationship dies. You're proving the rule. And it's not until you're in a relationship where you actually want to keep fighting and moving forward, and there's enough good there that you want to preserve it and have to claw your way back to it. And so I think we hear it proves true. It becomes an underlying belief when we are young, when we're in our 20s and dating, that when we get into a relationship and we're 15 years in and, sex is definitely not what it used to be, we can get stuck in that story because we never reevaluate it, right? We don't take it out and look at it.
Yeah, and I bet a lot of these stories, they come from what we watch on TV too, right?
Yeah,
like, this is like, so this is where we're getting our sex ed is from Hollywood. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, this is the problem unto itself, right? That this stuff isn't real that we're watching on TV. That's not how relationships actually play out.
You mean I don't
Right?
wake up looking like Angelina Jolie in the morning? With my hair done and
Yeah. Well, yeah, for sure, right? I mean, and I think that low desire is just an indication, most likely, of what's going on in our life most times.
Yeah.
Right. We've talked about you've got somebody in your life that you're caretaking for, or you're super busy with work, or you're not feeling well, or there's all sorts of reasons for low libido. And being able to talk with your partner about it would be helpful.
I feel sorry for all these individuals, young people in particular, who are addicted to porn and have these insane ideas of what like sex is supposed to be like. Nothing close to what actual gratifying sex for most people equates to, and the damage that does. They can never get into a relationship and feel, sexually pleased, and they're, anyways, the
I love
challenges
this,
with
Kori.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love this because it comes into myth 4. Fantasy means dissatisfaction or betrayal in your relationship.
Oh.
So now I didn't put porn in this, and perhaps that's somewhat different. But what are your thoughts on your partner having fantasies about other people? Do you think it's a betrayal? Do you think it's a sign of dissatisfaction, or just part of a normal relationship? And definitely delve into your younger self and what you thought too. Don't just think about your wise self now. We've all come a long ways on here, but let's think about our younger audience.
Well, I've always thought it's just like a human response, it's part of being human. We're drawn to, not one person can be you're everything. So I've always felt that way, that you're gonna be attracted to other people, and I don't know, fantasy can be fuel for good intimacy with your partner. So, but I get, like, I know that it has caused problems in relationships since forever,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Right.
people struggle with it for sure. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I think, how can one not have fantasies about? And if they don't, then they might be lying.
Well, yeah, because one person can't be an everything to you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, you're not going to find one person is the center of your erotic desires forever. So you're going to, we've got minds and we think about things, and it's interesting because I think that Perel points out in her book, I think that's where I got this from. Yeah, that humans are the only species that has sex for eroticism. We're the only one. The rest, it's procreation.
Yeah.
So, and eroticism is something that lives in our mind. That's like that sort of like that more complex thinking that humans are capable of. So, of course, we're going to have fantasy going on in our minds, and we're going to be thinking about other people and other things and other scenarios, and those things will turn us on, and that may turn us towards our partner, and we're having more sex with them as a result of that. It makes sense, right? But there is a belief that if your partner is fantasizing about someone else, then you're not enough for them.
So I think my younger self, I think, was more threatened by this than I am now. Although I think I'm like you, Kori, like I always understood there's a level of human behavior. I would say that there's a difference to me between fantasizing about a real person in a fixated way, right? If you are continually fantasizing about um our neighbor or a woman at your work or something, and she's coming up all the time, to me, that's not so much a like indulging in a little outside stimulation so much as like actually potentially developing a fixation on somebody else, right? Whereas like if you're fantasizing about like an actor, that's not a real, like you don't know that person, right? That's not real. That's a fantasy that you're making up about that person or a role they're playing. Or if you saw somebody hot and you found them to be attractive, that's a different sort of a passing like, whoo, little like peak. For me, also fantasy tends to be more, I think about scenarios necessarily,
Yeah.
not people, right? I don't think, but maybe that's just the way my brain works. I don't think I've ever really been like, oh, I really am going to pretend that you are this other person. So I think I might find that offensive if he was pretending that I was somebody
Yeah.
else,
Right.
as opposed to like, like
True.
if we're doing some role play scenario, that's a different type of fantasy to me, which is not, and I think young people can still find that threatening. I mean, anybody can find that threatening, but I think especially when you're in a newer relationship or a little bit immature about it, that can feel like, why am I not good enough? Why is this not good enough? But I think that's that spice piece that Esther Perel is talking about that you're referring to, Zab, that like, let's just make it fun and interesting,
Yeah.
taking ourselves outside of the norm, right? And I think that can be very healthy.
Well, and she says that the question isn't why I'm fantasizing, but what part of me wants expression. So understanding fantasy can deepen intimacy instead of threatening it. So say you're having, your fantasy might be tying up your partner. Maybe it's because you're wanting more control,
Yeah.
right, in your life. So like examining fantasy can definitely deepen your bonds and your relationship with your partner, and, spice things up, I think, right? Like you're saying. So, okay, let's go to myth 5.
Nice.
If desire fades in a long-term relationship, is the solution to open up the relationship? So we hear this a lot, that monogamy kills passion, and the only way to keep erotic energy alive is to bring in other people. The infamous unicorn. Is that actually true, or are we confusing boredom with a deeper relational issue?
Well, that's pretty complex.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a true or false to that. I mean, it's so situation pending, right? Um, I don't know. I don't know if I could handle doing the polyamorous sort of lifestyle. It's a lot to navigate. One person is challenging enough, complex enough. But I know people who it works for.
Yeah.
I know that it can be done, and sometimes it's not a like forever. It's just a time in life where that opens up and feeds a purpose and stimulates attraction, desire, etc. But yeah, that's complicated for sure.
Yeah. I think I know some people like you say, Kori, that's worked really well for, and usually they have very strict rules around how that looks for them.
Yeah.
Right? Either the third is somebody that they share mutually, or that there is external dalliances that do not impact the core of their relationship, whatever that looks like to them. But I also know couples that have tried to spice it up by going outside. And maybe it's the lack of rules and communication around that has killed it. Or maybe it's that last desperate gasp, the relationship is failing and they're making this grab. But I
I've
definitely know
seen that
people who've
many
tried it.
times.
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
doesn't work, right? It just winds up killing everything. Personally, I think I'm more monogamous by nature. Like I'm not, it seems way too much work and way too complicated.
A lot
I'm
of scheduling.
exhausted even thinking about it. I keep thinking about I can't even remember the Tina Fey movie where she's in a relationship with Steve Carell and her friend is like, oh, I got this fantasy of two guys at the same time. She's like, literally my worst nightmare. Literally my worst nightmare.
So interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would have to say in my 53 years of living, I've only known one couple who are swingers and they don't have children and they're super happy and they have worked that out. My other experiences with that, I had a friend who decided to play the role of the unicorn in a couple that was bored and invited her into their bed. It ended with the wife running out because the husband and the unicorn were very much into each other and the wife ended up feeling excluded. So it didn't go well.
Yeah.
The
That poor
other,
girl
yeah,
in that scenario.
so awful. The other, I mean, I've known of many, but one I'm thinking of in particular was a couple who had a open relationship. And even so, they were cheating on each other. Like they were not honoring the rules that one another had put into place. And I remember just thinking, wow, like you've got this whole thing going on where you've got this open relationship and it's supposed to be built on trust. And yet this person was not, working within the perimeters of that arrangement.
Yeah.
And, that's just, my
The other thing that
experience.
I've seen happen a lot is that one partner is more successful in the open relationship out on the dating scene than the other. And then the other one, it seems like it's a great idea until you realize that actually you're not the hot commodity you once were on the dating market. And so your partner's having lots of great fun adventures and you're just sitting at home babysitting the kids or whatever. You're like, this was not great.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's true. So what I learned from mating in captivity is that opening the relationship doesn't necessarily fix desire. It changes the structure around it, but the core erotic challenge is still there. So desire doesn't die because of monogamy. It fades when we lose otherness. Opening a relationship may introduce novelty, but if the couple hasn't addressed resentment, emotional shutdown, or lack of individuality, those dynamics are going to follow them. Furthermore, if the relationship is unhealthy, it will introduce, no doubt, as we said, jealousy, insecurity, disconnection, and feeling unchosen, which is what clearly happened to that young woman that I was talking about. So Perel is not anti-open relationship. She respects non-monogamy when it's intentional, mutually desired. It's not a panic response to disconnection. It's not avoidance of intimacy work.
Yeah.
Which makes so much sense.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a perfect description of like the pitfalls that can come from it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So to all of our audience out there, this episode is running really quite long and I'm only halfway through my content. So what we've decided to do is turn this into a 2-part series because clearly the 3 of us gals have a lot to say on this topic. Maybe we've been quiet for too long. So we're going to wrap this up right now, and then we're going to come back to you with a second part to this. So for today, I would like to thank Denison Design Co. for allowing me to use this beautiful space. They're an interior design company that does all their own custom millwork. They also have 2 storefronts, and you can come in and buy beautiful pillows and embellishments for your home. And you can look them up at www.denisondesign.com. Thanks for listening to us today, and join us for the second part to this.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.